help me welcome Ann as she comes and shares with us.
Okay, so just walk me through this. This one?
Move it forward.
Okay, great, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So approximately 7,452 people die in the United States every day. That's roughly one person every 12 seconds. And for every person that dies, there's at least one person who grieves for them. So that makes a whole bunch of new grievers every single day. We grieve for every loss that is significant to us. And as Dan was saying, I'm an advanced grief recovery specialist. And for 10 years, I've helped people to find their losses, to navigate through them, and to recover from them. What I'd like to share with you today are some thoughts about how grief and loss could be coming into your business, what that might be costing you in time and money, how you might be able to identify that, and what you might be able to do about it. So how many of you here, you all own businesses, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I never assume. I never assume. How many of you have more than one employee in your business? No? Oh, Dan, you do?
Not really, just my wife and I, so I don't know
Well,
about.
okay, all right. So
She employs me.
we'll call it a partnership. Okay. So this next statistic won't pertain to you, but it's an interesting one. The stats really don't lie. These are the true stats. The grief index tells us that 1 in 4 employees in this country is grieving. 1 in 4. That's pretty high, don't you think? In 2003, there was an estimated $75 billion per year related to unresolved grief and other issues around it. $75 billion, that's what it's costing this country per year in unresolved grief issues. Pretty staggering, don't you think? How many of you, or how many think you might know what it is currently? More. Well, yeah, more. Anybody want to give me an idea of how much more?
83 billion?
Twice as much.
Yeah, I was going to say 90.
150?
Over $100 billion per year. I don't even know how many zeros that is. Nathan, you might be able to help me out there. You're a figures guy. Was that like 8? No.
9.
Zeros? I don't know. But that's, can you believe that? $100 billion a year it's costing this country in grief and unresolved grief and associated issues. So, days of lost work or poor production. These are some of the major things, the major challenges that affect most business owners. And it can show up in the form of poor performance, illnesses, or accidents from their employees. These are some of the ways that you might see it show up in your business. Now, I know all of you are solopreneurs, so a lot of these things won't actually pertain to you, but something to think about.
Well, if you die, then your business no longer exists.
That's a
Yeah,
big
right,
thing.
yeah.
Yes, it's a very much a reality. You got it.
Well, I work for Columbia Credit Union, so
Oh,
we're a
well.
not-for-profit corporation, but I also
Yeah.
own a small business. So.
Right, right. So, yeah.
So,
Can you imagine, I mean, I don't know how many employees you have there, but at least 1 in every 4 is grieving.
Yeah, a coworker recently suffered the unexpected loss of her mother, and so I saw that in the way of trying to, you can only call insurance companies and this and that during business hours. So I saw a lot of that going on. Besides the grieving process, is the lost production at work, because those are the only times that you can reach the people you need to reach.
And thank you for bringing that up. I mean, that is not even something a lot of people consider. I mean, how many times do you have to stay on hold just to speak to an insurance company if you're able to get a real life person in the first place, right? Sir, you had a question.
Yeah, I wrote down 1 in 4 employees are grieving, but the other one, you had a stat, 7,000 some people a year. What'd you say?
Oh, 7,452 people die, approximately, that amount die every day in the United States.
Every day.
And that comes down to 1 every 12
Okay.
seconds.
Okay.
So since I've been talking, which is approximately about 3 minutes, how many seconds is that, Nathan? Come on, on. I can't do that in my head. You getting the idea? And the sad thing is, though, that there is one person, at least one person grieving them that's become a new griever and doesn't even understand what grief is all about.
So since we started, about 200 people passed away. Took the last one.
So the sad fact is we really don't know how to deal with grief and loss, and we certainly don't know how to deal with it in the workplace. So let's start with bereavement leave. How much bereavement leave do we get in this country? 3 days.
Wow.
When my little girl died, my little kitty girl, Princess, she was 18 years old, love of my life. She died, my heart just shattered into pieces, even though she was at the end of a long illness and I knew it was going to happen. 3 days, I didn't even know what my name was, let alone think about going back to work. How many of you have been in that situation where you've had to go back to work after 3 days? Do you even know where your head's at after 3 days?
Not really.
No, it's impossible. So the interesting thing is Facebook in 2018, they changed their bereavement policy. They now have made it that it's 20 days of leave for an immediate family member, 10 days for an extended family member. And boy, I sure hope that includes pets. Now, New York is also looking at putting together a new law that is going to allow, get this, 12 weeks
Wow.
with partial payment for you to be off so you can actually grieve. And that was co-sponsored by 2 senators who unfortunately lost a child each. And they realized, you know, you just can't do this in 3 days. Someone came to their senses. Now, that hasn't been put into law yet.
But that's going to add to the 100 billion.
It may, but look at what's going to happen because those people are given more time to grieve and to actually deal with it. It will actually reduce the loss of work days related to illnesses and accidents and reduce performance. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Okay.
That's why this is important. That's why it's costing this country so much, because people come back to work and they don't know what they should be doing. So that brings us to, what do we say when people come back to work? How do we support them? Do you have any idea of what we would do to help people come back into the workplace? So your credit union, do they have a special program put together to help people who are grieving unexpectedly or expectedly, and do they know what to do to help them back into the
We have an
workforce?
EAP, Employee Assistance Program.
Right, but is that
But,
geared
yeah.
for grief?
Yeah,
Great. Okay, do they have someone they can talk to? Do they have programs that they can go through? Great, because not a lot of people do. Not a lot of places do. They don't understand how it actually affects them. So all of you are solopreneurs. So how do you deal with it when grief comes into your life? Can you afford to take time off work yourself? Or do you just plow through it like everybody else does? You don't have an option of taking time off, right? You don't even know where to begin to even start to take care of it. So let's look at what grief and loss really are. The actual definition of grief is, I'm sorry. I have a form of dyslexia, so sometimes words just pop up off the PowerPoint. So grief is the normal and natural reaction to any loss that is significant to us. So let's look at that again. Normal and natural reaction to any loss that is significant to us. How many of you have had a loss and you felt like killing someone? Be honest, it's okay, I won't tell anybody. How many of you got really angry and wanted to do something? It's okay if you don't want to share. How many of you couldn't get out of bed? How many of you couldn't get through the day? How many of you didn't know what to do next? How many of you didn't know what your own name was? How many of you got into the car and started driving and didn't know how you got there? How many of you were in a fog? It's all normal and natural. Please don't let anybody tell you that whatever your experience relating to grief is not normal and natural. It is. I have people that want to physically kill somebody. Now please don't do that, but it's a normal and natural reaction to loss. So what is loss? Loss is a change of or end in a familiar behavior or pattern related to a person, place, or thing. So read that again, see if that makes sense to you. Yes, sir.
Is that only in cases when the person died, was either killed in some kind of accident, or are people like wanting to kill people when there's natural deaths, like like a grandparent dying or whatever. Is that or are you talking about like specific?
That is a great question. I get it from people who have maybe lost an animal, from people who maybe have had an unexpected, it could be anybody. Because here's the thing, you don't know how you're going to react to your loss. You might think you do, and you might have been playing it over in your head, but I can guarantee you, very rarely do we know how we're going to react to loss when it comes up and bites us, because a lot of the time it's unexpected. And even when somebody has had a long lingering illness and they're in pain and they're suffering, it still is a huge loss to people. And we'll get to why that happens here in just a wee minute, but that's a good question. So looking at this loss, end of, a change in a familiar behavior or pattern related to a person, place, or thing, there's over 42 different kinds of losses. Can anybody give me some ideas? Of course, we've got death. We know that that's one loss, but what other kind of loss might we have?
Divorce,
Divorce?
when people
Injury.
lose their jobs.
Yes, oh my gosh, sorry?
Injury,
Injury, yes. Loss of ability of your body. What else?
money?
Losing your money, financial loss. Losing your home.
Medical diagnosis.
Medical diagnosis. Yeah.
Robbery or,
Robbery, yeah. Theft. Absolutely. All those. Retirement, graduation, getting married, having a baby. They're all losses one way or another because our identity changes.
Oh.
And every time our identity changes, yeah. You get it? So every time our identity changes or we have to change one of these things here, we are going to experience grief. If it's significant enough to us, we will experience grief. Yes, Dan?
I don't know if it's women as well, but I know men, a lot of them, when they retire, they have lost of identity of what they are, because
It's a
their
big
whole
thing.
identity is the job.
Yes, yes, absolutely. They're no longer breadwinner. And that's a huge thing for whether it's a woman or a man. Yeah, absolutely. And for 42 different kinds of losses, and the thing is, we don't even realize that we're grieving a lot of the time. So, this is sometimes how grief might show up for us in the workplace or for ourselves. Distracted, confused, numb, anxious, acting out, being different, maybe being what I call a turtle, pulling your head into your shell, just not being able to be fully present, not enjoying yourself anymore, not getting any joy out of anything that you used to before. All of these are some ways that grief can show up in our lives or in the workplace. And like I said, we might not even be realizing that we're grieving, but not engaging with others, not being able to have joy, it robs us of a lot of those things. So why do we stay stuck in our grief? This is what happens. We get a terrible phone call. Or we see something happen in front of us, or we experience something. What's the first thing people try and do?
Denial.
Okay. What else do people, what do people do for you? What do people try and do to you if they know that you've had loss?
Minimize it.
Pardon?
Minimize
Minimize it. How do they minimize it, Paula?
Well, this could be worse if this had happened.
Yeah, that makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Sometimes they avoid you.
They avoid you, yeah. Nathan?
They try to give you advice.
They try to give you advice. What else do they do? Have you-
Nothing.
Pardon?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They avoid you.
Right, okay. How many of you had them say things to you that are really hurtful? They mean to be nice, right? They're trying to be nice, but it doesn't really happen, because what happens when someone is they see you hurting, first thing they want to do is take away your pain. Excuse me. Guys, I wish I could give you all a magic pill to take away with you and say, here, give this to the next person you see who's grieving. It'll fix them right up. But you can't.
I had that happen with, I suffered 3 miscarriages, and I had everyone's avoid me to think, well, at least you weren't further along. Like, that's supposed to make it better, you know, and I think they mean well, but, you know.
They do. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
yeah.
They mean well, but they don't say the things that help us, right? Yeah. This is why we stay stuck in our grief. And one of the reasons why we stay in it, because we have these 6 myths that people believe are the truth. And that's why they say the things to you that are very, very hurtful. They don't mean to be, but they're trying to fix it. They're trying to take your pain away. They're trying to put you back in a place where you can function again. because I'm just going to get really in your face about grief. Grief is thoroughly 1,000% inconvenient. You know it, right? Somebody says, oh, my dog died. Oh, God, now I have to deal with that. Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. Here, let me try and help you. Now that sounds very cynical, but I'm sorry guys, it's the truth. You know it is. Because it's kind of like going out and finding that your battery's dead and you've got a flat tire, right? There are unexpected things that happen. But anytime somebody's grieving, we feel that we have to get up there and we got to rise to the occasion and we got to fix it. Well, most of us don't know how to do that. We really don't know how to fix grief, and you can't fix it. That's the point. Yes?
There's major issues with PTSD, the same thing in veterans right now.
Oh my gosh.
60 Minutes had a good thing last night.
Absolutely. I so want to work with the Wounded Warrior Project too and help them, because these guys come back and, I mean, grief is everywhere. That's the problem, but we try to make it all pretty. We try to put flowers and everything around it. That doesn't work. I get very passionate about this, and I get in people's faces about grief because I really want them to understand. It's not going to go away until you do the work. It's not going to go away until you recognize what it is and actually step up and do something about it. It's going to stay and
Time
dysfunction.
heals all wounds definitely doesn't work.
No, we'll get to that. Yes, sir.
Are there some other names that would be interchangeable for grief? Because I was thinking about
Great question.
you said that stat about I don't know how many millions of dollars are used. I think I've seen a similar stat for other kinds of maybe depression or things. So I'm wondering, is there something that you would say is interchangeable with?
Oh, gosh.
with that?
Everything we just talked about, you know, somebody's acting out, you may be grieving. Who knows, right? Depression. It's a really big thing. Now, a lot of people go to the doctor after they've had a serious loss, and the doctor will say, here, have a sedative. Right? It'll help. Or here, have an antidepressant. That might help you right now, but it's not going to help in the long run. So yeah, there's many different names. You can call it any of these things that we have already talked about.
Are they just? I mean, do you differentiate them? Like when you talk, like, okay, I'm feeling really depressed. Like, oh, but I'm also
On in their life. When I talk to them, I find out their story. That's what I do. And I don't label them. Because one thing to be labeled as a griever sets you apart from everybody else. That's instant isolation. That's why I don't identify people in a group as being grievers. Because it stigmatizes us further. See what I'm saying? Now, some of you will share openly the losses that you've had, but others choose not to because they don't want to be identified as a griever, because they're probably tired of hearing people say things that just don't make any sense. So let's look at these things. Don't feel bad. Why not? Your heart is probably broken. Why shouldn't you feel bad about that? I know I have, and I've lost things. Replace the loss. I'm going to tell, well, actually, let me go back to the first one here. Don't feel bad. I've got a good story to tell you. So when my beautiful kitty boy, Max, of 20 years old, and we had him euthanized, and I had a blanket that I laid him in, this nice little blankie, and the vet came to the house and euthanized him, and she had a lovely little van that had swing doors, and there was the trunk. And she placed Max down there. She had him all wrapped up beautifully in the blanket so that I got a beautiful, beautiful last image of my little kitty boy. And then she closed the doors. And the person standing behind me, or beside me, put his arm around me and said, "Don't feel sad. You knew it was going to happen." I just shut down. Like, you know what? I won't tell you what I thought, but I was thinking it. It's like, really? Did I say that to you when your mother died? Did I say, don't feel sad? You knew it was going to happen one day? We have every right to feel bad. Replace the loss. What do you think people said to me? Hey, do you want another kitty? Excuse me? No, I don't want another kitty. I haven't even thought about my darling boy yet. I haven't even been able to look at what I'm feeling for this boy. So replace the loss is a very, very common thing. Hey, do you want a puppy? Do you want a kitten? Hey, don't worry. We can get you hooked up on a dating site. You'll be dating again, no problem. Don't worry about it. It's all going to be, oh, did I,
That was my
what's
fault.
about it? Don't worry about it.
I forgot.
We'll get you all sorted out. They weren't right for you anyway. Or you might hear a very sad thing. Don't worry, you're still young enough. You can still have another baby. Yeah. Replace the loss. It happens every time. Grieve alone is the next one. If you're going to cry, go to your room. Right from an early age, we're told it's not okay to show our feelings. It's not okay to respond to our grief. How many of you find yourselves riding around in your car because you can't be at home, or you just got to get out of the house? You know what I'm talking about. Sometimes we just got to get out of the car because we can't deal with it. We have to be alone because that's what we've been told. Be strong. Do you know how many parents I have that come to me and they say, but Anne, if I start to cry in front of my kids, they'll think I'm weak. They won't respect me. I've got news for you. From a very early age, your kids have already figured out that you're not Superman or Wonder Woman. They already know that you're a human being. And this is what I ask parents to consider. This is what I want you to take away with you as well today. You are modeling. Anytime you show or don't show emotion to your children or in front of your children, you're modeling to them how they should act, how they should behave. Do you really want them to go through life thinking that grief is a dirty word and that we should just hide it under the carpet? Or do you want to encourage them to feel it and to actually be able to do something about it? So just remember, all of these things are modeling to your children. What do you want to show them? Keep busy. Hey, there's this great new yoga place. Let's go down, check it out. Hey, let's go to the bar and get wasted. Hey, what about going to the mall? There's a sale on. All of these things are great. We can definitely keep busy. People have worked themselves into the grave keeping busy. And I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, we're alone, about to fall asleep. We're feeling it in here. See, people try and deal with grief up here. They try to intellectualize it. They try to compartmentalize it in their head. But it's not felt up here. It's thought up here, but it's felt down here. Time heals all wounds. Who was it that said that, Dan, you were saying? No?
Ron did.
Oh,
I
Ron,
mentioned
yeah.
it, yeah.
You know, I've worked with people 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They've been holding on to something. And they just really didn't know what it was that they were grieving over. Now, I'll grant you, time distances us from the event, right? The further away we get from the event, it's not so visceral, it's not so in our face. And it's what I like to, so if we look at this computer screen here, this has got some nice rounded edges. This is what time does for it. It rounds the edges, makes it a little bit easier to deal with, but it doesn't take away what's here. Because most of us, unfortunately, we've got our heart's been ripped out, it's been stomped on, kicked to the curb, we've got a couple of tattered Band-Aids there trying to hold that place together. So, no, they don't work at all. But what's at the basis of our grief? Undelivered communication. This is what the nuts and bolts of grief really is, guys. We don't get a chance to say goodbye. We don't get a chance to say I'm sorry. We don't get a chance to say I love you, I miss you, I wish you were here. God, I wish things had been better between us. Oh, if only I had have done. If only you had have done. Why didn't you ever tell me that you loved me? Why didn't you do this? These are all undelivered communications. How many of you have conversations going around in your head about somebody that you wish you had said something to, or they've said something to you and you wish you had have said it or done it differently?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we all want different, better, and more in any relationship, whether it's a person, a place, or a thing. And you'll notice I've been saying person, place, or thing. It's not just people that we lose. We can lose our state of identity when we move from one country to another, or one state to another. In my lifetime, I moved from New Zealand to Australia and Australia to the US. So I had to grieve for each of those losses because I moved from my culture over to this culture. A lot of us have unmet hopes, dreams, and expectations about relationships. God, if only. Who's going to come to the graduation? How do I deal with my finances? who's going to give me away when I get married. We all have to deal with these. So these are the things that keep us stuck in our grief. So, what do we do about it? I have a workshop coming up over in Portland at the new Renaissance bookstore. That's going to be the last Saturday of this month. It's going to be from 3 to 6 p.m. It's $35. You get a work packet and a link to a free ebook. And we'll be going over everything we just talked about here. Of course, I don't have a lot of time to talk about it today, but in that 3 hours, we really pull it all apart and look at it, and you get a chance to interact. It's also going to be a very safe and confidential place. So when I put my groups together, I make sure everybody understands that. You've got there an Are You Grieving assessment. I see some of you have already started to fill it out. So in just a few minutes here, just check it off, see how many you come up with, and if you have more than 3 on your checklist, chances are you're probably grieving. So I've put aside 20 minutes time for each of you. If you want to call me, a safe, private, confidential call, you get to tell me your story, and we get to look at your grief assessment if you'd like to do that. And then, last thing I want you to think about, how are you going to change your language? How are you going to help people who are grieving? How are you going to support yourself? What will you do differently? Okay, anybody got any other questions for me? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering, the whole time I was thinking like, I thought about appropriate grief. That's what I was thinking about. Because I was thinking like, okay, when, in the very beginning you kind of outlined like normal or kind of a baseline of behaviors for grief.
Normal and natural
Normal and
reaction
natural
to loss.
behavior to loss. And then I was thinking like, okay, well, what if, you have somebody who's, grieving over the loss of a laptop. You know what I mean? And it's like,
You bring up, yeah, I love
and-
your questions. You bring up a very good point. So here's the deal. Sorry, I went too far.
and when the emotion is not appropriate for the type of loss,
I love
and
it.
then being able to, because those are the parameters I'm looking at, and I'd like you to maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. There are no parameters when it comes to grief. I'm just going to blow that out of the water. Let's read this again. Grief is the normal and natural reaction to any loss. Now, you're talking about computers, right?
Let's say my kid is 12 or 13 years old, and I don't have a kid that's 13, but anyway,
That's
I
okay.
take his cell phone away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Take his cell phone away. You're not using this cell phone.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this child goes and tears up everything in the house,
Yes.
and maybe runs outside, maybe even runs away, maybe does something just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Am I gonna, the thing I would have trouble with is saying that, okay, that's okay, you're grieving. I'm gonna be like, if you don't get your mind right now.
Right. So the first thing you want to do as a
Yeah.
parent is to
Yeah.
tell them, hey, this isn't cool. You're behaving.
Yeah.
Your behavior is not good. So as a parent, we're bound to. We have to show children what's right and wrong, what's accepted of them, right? But is he justified? Is he okay having those normal and natural reactions to his loss? Yes. It's up to you to figure out what behavior needs to be
So
looked
the
at.
feeling is fine,
Yeah.
but the
You have to
behavior
decide.
has to be
No,
Or no?
you have to decide whether the behavior is what you want your child to have or not. He's going to have that behavior and that reaction whether you like it or not.
Well, not the
It's his
reaction.
loss.
I don't mind, because I know we have, like I talk about, emotional intelligence and
Right.
understanding that the
Right.
brain has an emotional reaction before any type of logical reaction.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
But what if your behaviors after, you're like, okay, because of this, I start to, do some things that that would, you know, cause harm to myself, to others, to, or a escalation of intensity based off of a,
So I think what you're saying, if I can maybe put in some words here, so we're all gonna react to a loss that's significant to us, no matter what.
Right,
And we
right,
will
right.
all have different behaviors, and again, I just wanna make sure everybody understands that's normal and natural.
Yeah, yeah.
How you present that, that's where the rub is,
okay.
okay? I just lost my dog. I'm gonna go out and kill 32 people. Clearly, that's not acceptable
Right,
behavior.
right.
But your thoughts about that are normal and natural because you've just experienced a heartbreaking loss.
Okay, okay.
It comes to, yeah, and it really is difficult. You know, this is why we have people going out with guns and killing other people, because they don't understand how to deal with this.
Mm.
They don't understand how to help, others don't know how to help them with these losses. And I
Mhm.
can guarantee you, those people who go to schools with guns, they got a lot of unresolved grief.
Mm.
And that's what makes it so very sad. But I love your questions. You ask really awesome questions. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Are we doing okay for time there?
One more.
one more.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a question. Obviously it's related to that, but loss is not necessarily physical. It could be, say, you're going through a roller coaster ride in your business, and you're gonna gain customers, you're gonna lose customers, you're gonna have times where it's just, you know, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Is that a point of grief?
you betcha. You betcha. Because again, it's a change in or end of a familiar behavior or pattern. Anything that changes up our lives and it's significant to us is going to cause us pain. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's sneaky. It just gets in there before we realize it. It can permeate everything. But I'd be happy, like I said, I've put aside time so you can all spend 20 minutes with me on the phone. We can chat about it. You can tell me your assessment. Okay? But I love all your questions. Thank you very much. I hope it's been